Welcome everyone to the Women's Foundation of Boston information session for your group. Hi, I'm Christina Gordon. I'm the CEO of the Women's Foundation of Boston. Thank you for taking the time to connect with us to learn more about our mission and vision for economically empowering women and girls in Greater Boston. I am joined by the Women's Foundation of Boston team, including Amy Danoff, our CFO, and Patty Satterthwaite, our COO, and Michelle Samu, our operations manager, and of course, our special guest, Linda Driscoll, who is the CEO of Dream Big. The team and I are going to walk you through this presentation for about 15 to 20 minutes, which will be followed by Q&A. We will keep it as quick and comprehensive as possible, and please type any comments and questions into the chat box. The outline of the presentation begins with how and why we created the Women's Foundation of Boston over 4 years ago. In 2017, we strongly believed in the economic empowerment of women and girls and began researching what was going on in that space, nationally and locally. And we found some very shocking statistics. From Indiana University Lilly School of Philanthropy's comprehensive research, we learned that only 1.6% of all charitable giving in our country is directed towards women and girls serving nonprofits. And 40% of that is sent overseas, which is twice the rate of all other giving. So the 1.6% of the time that people are compelled to write a check to women and girls, they are twice as likely to send it overseas. We wanted to find out more, so we dug deeper. This chart is of all the US giving. As you can see, women and girls serving orgs are getting the least of any group. It's important to note that anything within the two largest groups, religion, education, or even health, that is specific to women and girls is actually in that tiny 1.6% box. So women's health is in the tiny 1.6% box, as well as education. So that small box includes, for instance, Susan G. Komen, all the Planned Parenthoods, every single women's college like Smith College and Wellesley College, and every YWCA in our country. We could not believe these numbers, so we dug deeper. We looked at the top 10 gifts within that tiny red women and girls box. The number 1 gift was a health org in India. The number 3 was actually a pediatric co-ed organization in Africa, which was founded by an American woman, so it was mistakenly put in the women and girls group. We looked closer to home at Boston statistics, more shocking numbers. Boston figures suggest that a mere 0.3% of all giving is directed towards women and girls serving organizations, a fraction of the national statistics. Other stats backed up the need for economic empowerment among women and girls in our city. Clearly, there is a massive underinvestment in women and girls serving nonprofits in the US and in Boston. And we could not find a large, vibrant women's foundation at the time here like there were in 44 other states in our country. Essentially, all American cities had a women's foundation advocating and funding women and girls. Boston did not at the time, so we created the Women's Foundation of Boston in January of 2017, and we have been growing exponentially ever since. Our success and growth highlights the fact that there was a gap that needed to be filled. Our exclusive focus on economic empowerment is very intentional, because by raising a woman's economic status, all of her life variables improve as well as for her children. Women also reinvest about 90% of their incomes back into their families and communities. This compares roughly to 35 to 40% for men. So investing in women is like investing in our city, and there's a multiplier effect. I'm now going to touch on our mission. Our mission is razor focused on economically empowering Greater Boston women and girls by supporting and funding women and girls serving organizations with high impact programs with a focus. I'd now like to talk about how we implement this mission. So we create and fund high impact projects in 3 areas. First, we focus on career and financial empowerment, which includes job training, financial literacy, and salary negotiation workshops. Second, we invest in leadership programs, which include really important mentoring networks. Third, we fund educational programs with a focus on high return fields like STEM and finance. We are extremely grateful for all of the funding we've gotten for these programs. And now I'm going to turn it over to Amy Danoff, and she will talk more about our unique team and business model. Amy?
Great, thanks, Christina. The Women's Foundation of Boston team is unique because we're all businesswomen with deep roots in Boston. We bring our expertise in financial analysis, investing, marketing, technology, consulting, and entrepreneurship to our projects and partnerships. Coupled with our extensive experience and relationships in our community, this makes for significant impact in everything we do. Finally, we are all volunteers. We have a stellar board which has guided us wisely through our first 3 years of steep growth. Our board members have expertise in a diversity of fields, including healthcare, media, sports, nonprofits, foundations, technology, consulting, finance, and marketing. We're honored and very fortunate to have these powerhouses supporting our organization. We also recently added an advisory council to enhance our organization. These folks provide informal support to us on the volunteer and financial fronts. They also bring a wide range of expertise in community engagement. Now I'd like to highlight the advantages to our business model. We are tightly focused on the return on our and our donors' investment in our community. We evaluate impact to constantly improve outcomes, and along with our fabulous board and advisory council, advise our nonprofit partners, which are typically small and medium in size. We are an important strategic connector for Boston nonprofits, and we tap into our business, community, and philanthropic networks to build partnerships and create opportunities for our grantees. As you can see, we do a lot more than just write checks. Because we are all unpaid staff, we have almost no expenses, and every dollar from our donors goes directly to women and girls. Finally, we create important leverage through our collective giving. By combining gifts, we increase the impact and allow our nonprofit partners to plan better for the future. Our large gifts also often spur foundations and corporations to give more generously. We increase the visibility and credibility of our nonprofit partners with our grants and partnerships. And now Patty will talk about our progress in granting funds.
Thanks, Amy. I'm Patty, and I'm the COO of WFBoston. Our growth in committed grants has been dramatic, and the increase has continued despite the pandemic. Our 2020 grant cycle grants almost doubled our total commitments, and we expect grants to continue to grow significantly in the first half of 2021 through our 2021 grant cycle, which I'll touch upon in a few minutes. We have committed $1.75 million to 20 organizations with a diversity of programmatic focus and age profile, but all with an amazing impact, which we'll discuss later. The common thread in all our granting decisions is an emphasis on economic empowerment. I'm truly inspired by the amazing work that our grantee partners do. Our grants have a wide range of programs, from finance and career programs for single mothers to after-school STEM classes for girls in underserved communities to financial literacy for high school girls. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about our grant-making process. We drew from our investing in technology careers to build an innovative grant-making process, which we launched in June of last year. We exhaustively research and evaluate nonprofits and their funding requests through our proprietary scorecards using technology-driven custom grant-making software. Our expert committee uses this systematic approach to analyze and vet our invited nonprofit applicants. Our typical grants are for 3 to 4 years, ranging from $10,000 to $50,000 annually. Multi-year grants allow our grantees to focus on programming and impact. We collaborate with our nonprofit grantees to maximize their success. We closely monitor the impact by requiring detailed impact and financial data from our nonprofit partners twice a year. As a result of our inaugural grant process, we granted $750,000 in December of 20, and we immediately turned around and launched our 2021 grant cycle on December 15th, and applications are in. Our committee began its evaluation process yesterday, and we expect to grant over $1.2 million by June 1st through this process. And now I want to introduce Linda Driscoll from Dream Big.
Thank you, Patty. So just to give you a little overview, Dream Big provides girls and young women from low-income situations with the equipment, sports attire, college showcase and program fees, and leadership training needed to enable them to participate in sports and physical activities that contribute to their health, their education, and their overall well-being. Dream Big programs have impacted over 55,000 girls since we launched in 2010. The generous commitment for grant support from the Women's Foundation of Boston is assisting Dream Big in expanding our college showcase and national championship scholarship program that has proven to create opportunities for high school female student athletes from underserved communities in Massachusetts to have the exposure they need to be seen and recruited by college coaches. This will provide Boston high school athletes from economically disadvantaged communities a great opportunity who would normally miss this college recruitment opportunity due to the cost. Many of our best athletes aren't seen by college coaches because they don't have the funds or the scholarships and financial aid they need. For a small investment, we can help female student athletes gain access to the college pipeline. Just in the last month, we have had 2 athletes that we sponsored to attend a college showcase, and in the past committed to run track for St. Joe's University in Villanova. The small investment in these great athletes is giving them the wonderful opportunity to advance their education and truly will change their life. And though COVID had previously halted many sports programs and college showcases, I'm proud to say that we have distributed in just the past 10 months over $250,000 of new equipment and sports attire from our warehouse to female student athletes in need, so they're able to train and stay active during this difficult time. In addition, Dream Big was so grateful during this difficult economic time to be awarded a COVID-19 emergency response grant from the Women's Foundation of Boston. It assisted us we had a forced move to secure equipment storage space that had allowed us to not have to stop the delivery of our much needed programming, and the ability to accept donations from companies like Adidas and Nike. In just the past 2 weeks, we've received over $100,000 in new sports attire and equipment that we will distribute over the next month, and we would not have been able to do it without that emergency response grant. During these extremely difficult times for all our charities, the Women's Foundation of Boston has been our hero. They've extended a lifeline for nonprofit organizations that serve girls and young women in Boston, so we're able to ensure the safety and well-being of thousands of underserved girls and young women during the pandemic and for many years to come. And now I'll turn it back to Christine.
Thank you, Linda. We really appreciate your joining us and sharing your story and your amazing nonprofit with our group. Not only do we fund nonprofits at the Women's Foundation of Boston, we are also constantly identifying gaps and creating solutions for women and girls empowerment. The list on this slide gives you an idea of our special projects that we have created. And now Patty will discuss our most successful special project to date, which is the Women in Nonprofit Network.
Thanks, Christina. So I manage WIN, the Women in Nonprofit Network. About 2 years ago, we identified there are few, if any, opportunities for women CEOs of nonprofits to network, connect, collaborate, and share best practices. And there were almost no professional development opportunities for these women leaders given their tight nonprofit budgets. So we decided to change that. In conjunction with our partner, the Red Sox Foundation, we created WIN, a dynamic and growing network of women nonprofit leaders in Greater Boston. We don't charge membership fees or initiation fees, and there's no lengthy application process, and all women nonprofit executive directors are welcome to join. We have had 5 amazing events so far, which have all been well attended and got rave reviews. We had to pivot to online gathering via Zoom during the pandemic, but this actually increased our ability to reach nonprofit leader audiences. On January 28th, we hosted an event entitled Leveraging Your Board in response to member preferences in our surveys. 160 nonprofit leaders and board members attended. It was a huge win. We are proud of the early success of this network and look forward to continuing to build it out. And now I will hand it back to Christina, who will talk about our impact.
Thanks, Patty. We measure impact frequently. As part of the recent Grantee Partner Impact Update, we received these statistics from Budget Buddies. We're thrilled with the results of this grant, and you can see why. We are proud of these outcomes and the impact it is truly having on the girls and women living in low-income situations. The fact that 93% of Budget Buddy teen girls make a budget and 92% of the women pay their bills on time is exactly why we created the Women's Foundation of Boston. We have impacted almost 9,000 women and girls in Greater Boston in less than 3 years of granting funds. Our impact is broad and diverse, but all empower women and girls to become financially independent members of their communities. Our COVID response fund had a huge impact on the organizations funded and their constituents. Over a third of the impact described on this page came from our timely and technology-focused grants. I'd like to drill down a little bit on our COVID response fund and its enormous impact. We created the first and only COVID response fund specifically for women and girls in Greater Boston. And through a generous match, we raised $500,000. Demand for help from the nonprofits serving women and girls skyrocketed while their fundraising sources pretty much evaporated. Equipment and software allowed our partners to swiftly pivot to online programming so that women and girls could stay connected during isolation. Here you can see the large number of women and girls that were impacted from our response fund, specifically with respect to the virtual pivot. We are extremely proud of this, and it has highlighted to us how important our work is today more than ever. Boston needs an organization advocating for women and girls, and without us, there really wouldn't have been one. This is our latest addition to our impact tracking. We had expected that the racial data would show that women and girls are of color receive the majority of our granting. And this is because the majority of our grants go to women and girls beneath the poverty line. And the majority of women and girls beneath the poverty line are non-white. So we were not surprised by this data. We grant based on impact and need. And so these numbers make sense to us. I'd like now to talk a little bit about our near future. The current environment for women and girls is difficult and deteriorating almost every day. Who knows how long it will take women to regain the lost years of progress in terms of workforce representation and pay. We see ourselves as a vital resource for women in any recovery in employment and economic empowerment in the years to come, and stand ready to help organizations drive growth for women. We are doubling down on our efforts and focusing on fundraising. After almost raising $1.8 million in 2020, we are continuing to project growth in fundraising in 2021 and beyond. Our vision and our mission is resonating with many in our community, including men. About 16% of our donors are men, and we are very proud of this. We strongly believe men must be part of the solution. And now, Michelle will talk to you about how you can get involved and make an impact.
Thank you, Christina. You can get involved in a variety of ways to drive our mission forward. We always need volunteers, and you'll be joining a fantastic group. Of course, donating is a great way to help. You can go to our website to donate online, but we also take securities, wire transfers, and checks. Fundraising is an area that we always need growth. We would greatly appreciate you connecting us with potential donors, but you could also host a fundraiser at your school or at your home or virtually. One very simple way to help us is to follow us on social media and share our posts with your friends and your colleagues. It's free and it's a great way to increase awareness. If you follow us on Instagram, you'll see our work and our impact in action. We also post on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and our handle is WFBoston for all of them. So connect with us today. And lastly, we would love to connect with more businesses and friends, and we would be happy to set up webinars for other organizations on campus or other businesses that you are connected to. In the past, we did it in person, but we've pivoted to doing it virtually for now. So thank you so much for your support, and I will turn it back to Christina for questions.
Terrific. That concludes our formal presentation,